Hey everybody, it's Tom, and I am coming to you this evening to discuss a series of lectures by Karl Jaspers, a German thinker of note, who is actually associated more famously, I think, in Europe than in here with existentialism. And the last few videos I did were around a brief but powerful little work by Rollo, Discovery of Being, The Discovery of Being, Writings in Existential Psychology, which brought existentialist concepts to bear to inform psychological engagement. But in the background, of course, what is existentialism itself? What is the relevance of existentialism to our present juncture? And that's in part why I'm talking about Karl Jaspers this evening, because he's not amongst the more famous, more celebrated, more well-known existentialists. Probably the most famous existentialist as an existentialist will be Jean-Paul Sartre, through his novels and his philosophical writings. Other famous existentialists would be Maurice Merleau-Ponty, Simone de Beauvoir, who in some ways might be the most important existentialist because of her influence on the development of feminism, vis-a-vis, for instance, her book The Second Sex. And then there are other thinkers as well, Albert Camus, who repudiated the label existentialism or existentialist, but can still reasonably be seen as in the conversation of that school, if you like. Martin Heidegger, and so on and so forth. You can look at certain novelists, artists as well, who aren't philosophers per se, but whom one may justifiably designate as existentialists. So existentialism is more of an orientation. It's a commitment. It's a mood. It's a way, if you like, of doing philosophy as opposed to being a particular doctrine or set of doctrines or suppositions designated by emphases. It emphasizes the subjectivity, the first person experiences being of perhaps the greatest moment in navigating our life and entering upon the real or reality. And the emphasis upon that first person grounding is, in a sense, a response to the almost hypertrophy, the almost over or excessive growth of objectivism, or the preoccupation with the objective that we inherit from the Enlightenment, scientific revolution, so on and so forth. And on the heels of that development, the very limitations, which derive from an overreaching rationalism, generated responses accordingly, romanticism, and so forth. And in some respects, philosophy itself was, well, not just, it was wrestling with the challenge of what the power of the natural sciences had to say vis-a-vis philosophy as an independent kind of discipline. Because the questions with which philosophy preoccupies itself are often marked by an irresolvable ambiguity. This stands in sharp contrast to the apparent certitudes of science, the apparent capacity of the scientific process to yield ever increasing confidence in a set of discrete propositions as telling us something about the world, telling us something about the truth. But the rub resides in that what science relays to us is something about the truth, but not the truth writ large. It's a facet of the truth that we could say is captured in the word correctness, in the word facticity, in the sort of more colloquial phrase such and such. But when you look at what is under the umbrella of mere correctness, mere facticity, mere such and such, you are describing a relatively small portion of what makes up the real and our encounter with the real. And all this by way of preface to Karl Jasper's text, eXistenZ Philosophy, is the German, and again, it's a translation of lectures that he gave in 1937, outlining what many people would say are some of the more fundamental themes of existentialism. Now, what's interesting about this set of lectures is their stratified quality, the rhetorically stratified quality, because they were the last time, and he was aware of this as he composed and gave them, they were the last time Karl Jaspers, because his wife was Jewish, would be able to speak in public in light of the Nazi ascendancy. So the stratified, what I mean by the stratified quality of the text is that, in fact, within it is a powerfully subversive current of messages, which one might, at first blush, miss, as it's composed in a highly technical language at various junctions. But if one takes a few steps into that technical language, what you see in its exposition of existentialist themes is a vigorous repudiation of the kind of reductionist tact and the forfeiture of human responsibility that resided within the Nazi regime and the social conditions which permitted that regime to enter into power. And as such, is an act of quiet but powerful protest that we can only appreciate many, many years on. And I take succor, satisfaction in what Jaspers is doing, and I also take from it a kind of exhortation to act similarly in our own age, where there are temptations to other kinds of intellectual crimes than those perpetrated by the Nazis, but which are potentially as, or at least comparably, pernicious. There is a temptation to slide into dangerous relativism, relativism which is unmoored from a sense of definitive value. There's a tension between the limitations of our expression, the ambiguity which resides in that expression, and the need to ground ourselves in a sense of a true, of a real, which overrides those limitations. So I beg your forgiveness for that rather abstract way of concluding, because we're coming up on 10 minutes, but I will subsequently flesh that out with the discussion of Karl Jasper's sketch of being and our encounter of being at horizons or limit experiences. This has been Tom, and I'll talk to you guys soon.